Donald Trump and 2 Republican senators have unveiled their version of limiting immigration in the United States. And this goes further than just building a wall in the southern border. What they're now planning on doing is making it extremely difficult to obtain a green card. So they are limiting and capping legal immigration, sort of. So I'll give you the catch to this story in just a second, but first let me outline what they're doing exactly. Trump announced the Reforming American Immigration for Strong Employment Act on August 2nd, which aims to cut immigration by half from the current level of more than 1 million green cards granted per year. The legislation would mark a major shift in US immigration laws, which over the past half century have permitted a growing number of immigrants to come to the country to work or join relatives already living here legally. So one caveat to this policy would be the fact that minor children and spouses would still be eligible to apply for these green cards. So if it is a minor child living in a different country who wants to reunite with a parent who's living in the country legally, they would be able to do so by applying for that green card and hopefully getting approved for it. Now, let's hear from Trump. He was joined by Tom Cotton and David Perdue, the 2 GOP senators who worked on this legislation. Let's take a look.
This competitive application process will favor applicants who can speak English, financially support themselves and their families, and demonstrate skills that will contribute to our economy. The RAISE Act prevents new migrants and new immigrants from collecting welfare and protects US workers from being displaced.
So I want to weigh in on why this is a huge hypocrisy, or shows the hypocrisy of the conservatives in a second. And also the 2 things that are driving the 2 decisions you're going to tell us about. This is the first, and then there's a second that is kind of ironic on the same day.
Right. Well, it actually wasn't decided on the same day. You're talking about the increase in the cap. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that he is, using all this tough talk, and the GOP is saying, no, this is a great idea because we have American workers who need jobs, and unfortunately those positions are being filled by foreigners, and we just can't have it. We need to look out for Americans, America first. However, very recently, Donald Trump decided to lift the cap on foreign workers coming into the United States to work in the fishing industry, in some other temporary jobs, seasonal jobs. So I'll give you the numbers on that. So the Department of Homeland Security actually raised the cap on what's known as H-2B visas for foreign guest workers. It was originally 66,000 a year, and they increased the number to 81,000. A couple days after the Trump administration did that, guess what Trump did specifically? Just 3 days later, Trump's properties told the Department of Labor that they wanted approval to hire 76 guest workers using those visas. But what about the American workers? I mean, they're very concerned about the American workers. And here's the thing, like if they were genuinely concerned about American workers and they provided data and statistics indicating that this policy would help Americans get jobs, this policy is not done for xenophobic reasons, then I'm willing to have a conversation. I think that that is a legitimate concern. But when the numbers don't add up, and when they say things like, oh, they need to be able to speak English and they have to have good education skills, I mean, it's pretty clear what they're trying to do. They're trying to paint these individuals as, illiterate individuals who want to come here and mooch off the system, when that is the furthest thing from the truth. And the Trump administration likes to use foreign labor as well. So yeah, we know what the reality is.
Okay, so first of all, I would love to see if Trump could pass those English tests that he's referring to for the immigrants. But to the heart of the issue, remember all the times the conservatives said, no, this is not about legal immigration. We're just, we gotta be a country of laws. We gotta have a border. If we don't have a border, we don't have a nation. So this is all about making sure that there is not undocumented immigrants, or what they would call illegal immigrants or illegal aliens. But no, we're not racist. It has nothing to do with Latinos. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. You liberals are making that up. No, we're love legal immigration as long as you are following the laws. Turns out, just kidding, we don't really like illegal immigrants either. So we're going to take the number of legal immigrants and cut them by half. Now, there's a couple of reasons we're going to do that. We claim it's for the American worker, but I mean, this thing that Anna just told you about how Trump, when it comes to his own properties, is bringing in foreign workers. That's it. I'm not having a conversation about American workers and whether Trump cares about them anymore. I'm having a conversation about how we can actually help American workers, but not what Trump's intent is. Trump's intent is politics. And when it comes to actual jobs, he's like, no, I'm not gonna hire Americans, they cost more. No way, hey, that's for you, that's not for me. So there's two real motivations. One is pander to your base, and hence the pander bear. And so healthcare was a disaster. I've accomplished nothing, but don't worry, foaming at the mouth conservatives, I still hate brown people. And we're just kidding about it being illegal. We just don't care about that at all. We just care that they're from different countries, they're foreigners. And the second part of it is that politics. So if these people eventually become citizens, well, minorities are more likely to vote Democratic. Immigrants are more likely to vote Democratic. So here's a genius idea for the Republicans. Let's cut off immigration. Who cares that it damages the economy, it damages the American idea, goes against the principles of the Statue of Liberty. Don't care. I care about winning elections and scoring points with my base.
Right, exactly. And I love the point that you made about him pandering to his base, because look, even if you are a little more open to the Trump administration, you have to admit that there is a pattern, and this pattern has been so obvious, especially in the last 2 weeks. Okay, he fails when it comes to repealing the Affordable Care Act. He immediately goes off and tweets in the middle of the morning, early in the morning, about how transgender individuals are now banned from the military without advising anyone, letting anyone know that he's gonna do it. It was pandering to his base. And then fast forward to this week, here's what he does when really behind the scenes, he just applies for more foreign workers to come and work on his properties. Why aren't you employing American workers? Again, I wanna be clear. I think that we need to have an immigration policy that makes sense, that not only benefits people coming into the country legally, but also benefits Americans living here and doesn't hurt them. But this discussion is clouded in so much xenophobia that it's difficult to take anything that he says seriously.
So on the issue of legal immigration, there are conclusive studies that show that they overall add to the economy and not only, there's all talk about taking jobs, but a lot of them wind up becoming entrepreneurs that create more jobs here in America. So, and then the other part of it is that also studies showing that on average, legal immigrants commit less crimes than the average American.
Right.
So all those excuses are washed away. This is just about, we don't want foreigners in the country, and it's basically as simple as that. But on the issue of the actual jobs, I'm with you, Anna. I'm very curious about that. I wish I had access to all the information that the president has, which I'm sure he has not utilized at all.
Yeah.
But in terms of, so they brought in all these workers partly to work on Trump's properties, okay? So on their issue of their hypocrisy on the workers' visas. But so there's a seafood processing plants in Virginia, and they're worried that it might be already too late. They applied to get more workers because they need them, because they couldn't pick the crabs, shuck the oysters, pack the bait. There's refrigerating the seafood, there's hauling, et cetera. There's all this stuff. So Americans can't do that. I mean, of course they can do that. So, but it's a tough job, and I guess, but that's a normal blue collar job. I'm amazed that we can't find Americans in Virginia to do that job. So, which of course means, no, we just can't find Americans at the price that they want to pay, the wages they want to pay.
So that, yeah, and that is an interesting perspective, and I looked into that as well, because look, if you're looking for cheap foreign labor, well then yeah, of course you're not gonna wanna hire Americans and pay them a fair living wage. But to counter that, there was a farmer, a grape farmer in Northern California, Napa Valley to be specific. And so he wanted to do right by Americans, and he wanted to increase the wages and provide benefits so he could attract American workers and rely on them. And so he increased the wage to $16 an hour, which is pretty good, and offered benefits including a 401k and health insurance. And guess what? He still couldn't find Americans who were willing to do the job. And I'm not making this up. The Los Angeles Times wrote about this. The New York Times wrote about this. It was part of something I found during my research for my debate. And so
So I know, and there's the cases down in the South, actually, ironically, in the states of, I believe, the two people who were introducing this bill with Trump, Purdue, definitely, in Georgia, they tried it once, and Tom Cotton's from Arkansas. And they got tough on illegal immigrants. In that case, it was undocumented and not legal. They kicked them out, and then the factories almost closed down and went to bankruptcy because they couldn't find anybody to work at those jobs. But nonetheless, I find that I literally don't believe it, and I'll tell you why. Those things definitely happen. It just means you had to increase the wages even more. And so, but it is a very interesting question, is at what wage will an American be willing to do these kind of blue collar jobs? And I don't mean just regular blue collar, they are hard, they're super hard. You go pick grapes or tomatoes in the middle of
backbreaking labor.
Yeah, in the middle of heat waves, etc. And so, but there's got to be a price, and does that mean that if at that price we wouldn't buy the wine, we wouldn't buy the crabs that they're doing? And that's never really been tested.
And look, to be honest with you guys, yes, it has to do with the amount of money a worker is getting paid, but there are other factors that don't get talked about enough or ever. For instance, migrant workers are much more mobile. They're willing to move from one place to another to take these jobs. When in reality, American citizens, they buy homes. They're usually not stuck in one place, but they want to stay in one place. That's where their family is. That's where their lives are. And so that's one of the other reasons why some American workers don't take these jobs, because it means that they're going to have to move from one place to another.
So finally, look, I just want to separate out the issues a little bit, because I'm very curious about at what price Americans actually take these jobs. And I think we should test that, and if it means higher prices for crab and wine, okay, right? I don't want to diminish that too much, because some people forget the wine and the crab, but for real produce and things that you need for your daily diet, that is really important for low-income people to have affordable food to eat. But I think as a society, we need to know how much the food actually costs. Either it costs a price that is higher and we can pay it, or let's just be done with this farce and go, no, it turns out we need foreign workers, because otherwise nobody buys these products because they're too expensive. And the real cost is this, but in order for it to be that low, we need foreign workers. Let's figure that out. It tries, all they do is demagogue in politics.
Yeah.
On all sides, but obviously most especially these guys who are all on the warpath against immigrants. And finally, that goes to my second point, which is that this immigration issue about the green cards is in a lot of ways removed from that wage issue. So on a macro level, of course, immigration could affect wages, but in reality, the people that you're bringing in, it seems like a big number, a million people a year, but according to the last census, we have at least 330 million people in the country. By now, it'll probably be way higher than that. So it's a tiny fraction of the people in America. And a lot of those immigrants, like I said, create jobs. So in reality, are we a country of immigrants? And so if we are, we should do those immigration positions no matter what, especially legal immigration. And then on the wages issue, let's figure that out. And if we think, okay, we don't want more low wage workers coming in on visas, that's a separate issue that we should sort out, and none of the politicians so far have actually given a decent answer to that.
Yeah, it turns out immigration is kind of complicated.
Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that immigration was complicated. Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.